Hello, I'm Ross. I work at Rive, and today I'm going to be talking to Hafeez, also known as Boredpxnda on X. Hafeez has made something pretty crazy. He's made an avatar creator using Rive. In this conversation, we go into many subjects, including the issues he came across when designing such a massive project, the state machine, solos, and how to control your Rive file using code. His avatar creator is available for free on the App Store. It is called Jazz. Hafeez, Bored
Okay.
Panda. Who are you? What do you do? And how did you come to use Rive?
Okay. Well, I'm a product designer. I've been designing for about 8, 9-ish years. I did not start off as a product designer. I was a graphic designer back then. I was in school and I tried software engineering, but I had to learn HTML first, then CSS, then jQuery, JavaScript. And it was a lot of things that I had to learn, each with its own, level of difficulty. And it kind of just made no sense to me. Why did I have to learn all of those languages? And anyway, that was what put me off software development. But what really stuck was design, graphic design, for design. I was a comic artist back in high school. Those were terrible comics, so let's never refer to that again.
Oh,
But so I think that's why design stuck with me, and I went for it, and it was good for the first ish year. I think my designs then were terrible, but people paid for them. I mean, I was in school, so people paid for them, and then I realized that I could do more. Then I learned to illustrate, and then I learned to animate. So I learned to animate using one very old laptop that could barely handle After Effects. And I think that's where my love for animation kind of came about, right? So eventually I got a role as a motion designer at a company. Then I had colleagues who were product designers, and then I asked to be demoted to product designer role, and I became a product design intern, working with product designers and stuff. And I think that was it. However, going forward from there, I would introduce elements of motion into my work because I was a motion designer. So I had this products and motion mindsets that would come together, and it was great. That was my perspective to design. And then Lottie came about, and it seemed like my prayers had been answered. I would animate in After Effects. I would send over to Lottie Files, and then from Lottie Files, I will see if the design looks just as it was in After Effects. If it didn't, I'll go back to After Effects, change some things, send it back to Lottie Files, copy the link to give to the code, then copy the it was a whole hassle, but it was the only way we could do things, right? And it worked for a while. So whenever I would design, and there was animations included. I would see for something that developer could do. Otherwise, I would bring it in through Lottie, and it was a whole thing. And along the line, Lottie became a requirement, right? And then Rive came along, and I did not buy into the hype. It was the whole, hey, look at this. It's basically Lottie, but with a smaller file size. That was the marketing that I saw. At the time, it didn't seem like a big enough, deal for me, file size wise, because my file size at the time was what, 100 kilobytes, 200 kilobytes. It wasn't very big. So you're telling me that I could reduce 200 kilobytes to 20 kilobyte, and I don't know. I mean, it's cool, but it didn't sell me at the time. And then 2 years ago, in August, I was in between contracts, and then I just said, let's try it. And I opened up Rive, and then I figured out the timeline side of things, the animation side of things, pretty easily. I mean, as an animator, it was really straightforward. But when they introduced the state machines, yeah, that just blew me out of the water. I did not get it at all. So I went to YouTube, checked out a couple tutorials. There was one particular tutorial that clicked. It was a basic button interaction tutorial. 20 minutes, nothing too much. But it worked. It got the job done, right? And that was it. I started interacting with Rive, the whole After Effects, Lottie files, and code pipeline into one. Rive has this framer code when you share, right? That you could just copy and then implement in Framer. And it felt like a marriage that was meant to be, Rive and Framer. And yeah, I offered that as a service, and I would build websites, use Rive in them. It was difficult for some companies to shift their animation workflow from Lottie to Rive, right? But I mean, the value is inherent, right? You don't need to do much convincing after all. The value is just there. So instead of the whole back and forth of Lottie, After Effects, Lottie code, you just had Rive. That's the value right there. That's the selling point. And yeah, that's pretty much how I started with Rive. I think it's been great so far.
well, let's see your file. Show us how it's set up. and what the state machine looks like.
Okay. So if you can see my screen. First, I tried to say, okay, so what would the characters look like? When you're trying to make something's modular, you have to make sure that each parts fit into each other, like they work independently, right? So the question was, how best would I do that while making the designs look unique? So I spent like an entire night doing that. I settled on this potato head. I know it looks bare right now, but like every character in Jazz has this potato head, right? This is where it starts from. And I went with like smaller eyes. If I remove this, I think this was this look, yeah, this series of looks was what really convinced me to kind of like go with this white border and shadows on the necks and everything. So I had all of this, and then I figured it's time to get started. So I left Figma, taking one thing with me, and that was this. I didn't want to recreate this in Rive. It just seemed like just the perfect potato head, right? So I just copied this as SVG and I dropped it in Rive. And this is it right here. If I go to avatar, character, you have the face. Yeah, you have the face. So every other thing is stacked in front of or behind the potato head, right? You have your face details, you have your beard, you have you have age, you have your mouth types, you have your eyes, and it's the combination of all these features that makes it look different when it's literally just the same base. We have a white outline on all the characters, right? It was more of a style thing. I wanted to be able to print out characters. I'm speaking with the printer right now. I'm trying to print out stickers. I wanted the characters to be sticker-like, so to speak. And to do that, you had to have this white outline on every character. That was where my first problem arose, because in Rive, you can't create unions, and then give it outlines. What I'm trying to say is, if you look at Figma, for instance, right, I can take, this is circle 1 and circle 2, and you can give them strokes as much as you want, and you would have strokes. Let's make it white. However, if I come here and I create a union, it becomes, two circles become one shape with the stroke outlining both shapes, so it doesn't intersect anymore. And if I move one circle, it kind of just affects the stroke and stuff like that. This feature is great, but it's not in Rive, and for good reason. I mean, you have to animate and stuff like that. It's, how do you create a character that has a white outline when you can't do something like this? So what I kind of went with was, and this is the difficult part, I then decided to create multiple layers. So normally, at first, you have character, which is the base stuff that you see, and then you have extra borders. This is the border for literally everything that is an avatar. So if you have a hairstyle that is an avatar, you have the border for said hairstyle here. This basically means I had to create double of everything that I created, right? And it was stressful. I'm not going to lie to you, especially for the hair types. Currently have around 82 hairstyles, which means I had to create a front hair, the hair that's in front. Then you have the back hair, the hair that is going to be behind the face, and then you would have the border hair, whatever it's called. That's the outline that's going to be there. That was the approach I took to the outlines, and it was a really difficult thing. Every character has the outline. Whatever it is that I do, there's an outline to it. If I change the body type as the outline. This is literally just lines at the back. I also had other problems, right? But the main one was how to color. That sounds easy, except if you consider the fact that there are literally more than 1,000 layers here hidden beneath different groups. And if you want to change, if I select it and let's have a hairstyle of say 7, okay, let's see. It's this one. Yeah, great. So let's say we have a hairstyle of this one. If I'm going to change hair color, you have different hairstyles. Now, bear in mind, if you know how Rive works, you know that I'm changing literally every layer in front hair and back hair to make this work. So that whenever I change from this hair to say another hairstyle completely, right, it retains the same color. But the minute you kind of have, let's say, face detail, for instance, right, you have a number of circles of different sizes together. And if I change another face detail, you have more circles. My attempt at circles, I think this was the first time that I encountered that problem, where you, besides having face detail, you also have face detail color. All right. I know it's overkill, but just bear with me here. You have detail color where you could change it to like different colors if that's what you wanted to do. Like I said, it's overkill. But then there lies a problem. For changing the colors of these freckles, you're changing all the circles. And that means literally every circle and every small circle that is there. And that slowed down the output for a while because, like I said, it's a lot of shapes. So I then had to sit with myself. I paused, I stepped back, and then I had to ask myself, what was the best way to do this? So you have all the face details here, whichever face detail you select. If I select face detail 4, watch this, it changes to detail 4, detail 5, and so on. So what I did to manage the whole slow output thing was I basically just clipped everything. So I introduced one rectangle, as you can see, and then I clipped the rectangle to the face details. That is this layer that contains all the solo. And at any given time, you can only have one layer visible anyway. But if you clip it to the group, then it's clipped to whatever layer is visible. And in so doing, the only thing that I change is going to be the color of this, which is this here. So if I change the detail color, if I change the detail color to say another one, you can see that the color here changes. So because this is clipped to the face details and I'm changing one, just one color, it made my output so much faster. It was insane. And it was weird that I didn't think of this for the hairstyles. I should have done this for the hair, but I had done the hair before I did this, and I didn't want to go back on anything, so I just let it go. If this file ever gets bigger, then I'll have to go back and do the hair thing, right? Because I mean, like I said, I'm optimizing for speed and everything. But yeah, that was what I did for hair detail. And as time went on, I needed to add other things like the halftone detail, like as you can see here. If I change the hair color, for instance, right, you can see that the halftone detail also changes color. And the halftone details were a chore to deal with. I have never ever been so frustrated in design before. It was insane. It was insane because for every halftone that you see, you have literally thousands of dots. And if you try to change the color of any of these dots, you're changing tens of thousands of dots because you want to change the color, right? So for context, yeah, this is what the halftone pattern looks like. And like I said, moving it around, it kind of does begin to wear on your Rive file because you're moving literally all of these elements at the same time. So what I had to do was come back to Figma. I then had to crop this file to make this. So if I go into this is a much smaller halftone file. What I was doing was in hair 39, for instance, I would then drag like 4 or 5 of these right into hair 39 and then place them in different areas of the hair, and then I would clip it. I would do something like this. And this is what I would do basically, right? For like literally every hairstyle. So I kept doing this for hair 1, hair 2, hair 3. And was it a lot of work? Yes. I feel like if you want to be really good at design, you have to learn to not shy away from doing a lot of work. When you come into doing something like this, you just know that you can get it done. It's just going to take a lot of time. So that's why I started adding afternoons to different hairs. But by the time I got to A69, my artboard was slow. My file was so large. I then had to find another way around it. And what I did was basically the same thing I did with the face details, right? I then created hair detail. You have a color. In the color, you have, basically what colors your half tones, right? So if I go to hair for 80, you have the outline for a it is selected, right? But then the point I'm trying to drive at, you already have the half tone for it selected. So the half tone here, it's animated. There's a position, there's a rotation, and there's a scale modifier that's already attached to it. So for each hair, the half tone moves around. So it kind of just aligns with what I want it to be because your hair is not the same thing everywhere. Your hair starts and ends at different places. For hair 77, for instance, there's not going to be a halftone pattern here. So for each hair, your halftone moves around. This halftone is here, for instance. But if I go to hair 77, it's here. So that's basically what I did. I'm using the same halftone pattern, but like I said, for each hair, it's just moving around. Before, what I was doing was you have 5 halftones for hair 1, 5 halftones for hair 2. And like I said, it was a lot of work. But now I only have like 5 halftone layers that I move around for different hairstyles. That's what I did. Was it necessary? No. Would the file have broken if I did not do it? No. Did I want to do it? Yes. And that's the point. That's the point of the entire project. I'm doing it because I can't do it and I want to do it, right? So that's pretty much how I solved the problem of the halftones and in trying to make my Rive file as optimized as possible. I was able to get the file to under like to under 2 MB, about 1 MB to 2 MB. That was file size, and it was still appropriate, and it was still fast for code. But
How
yeah,
many
this is my
hairstyles and bodies and beards and everything do you have? How many options are there? And
okay.
can
So
we see the
current
state machine and how that's all set up with the different state machine layers handling each different
yeah.
set of objects?
So the best thing about Rive, and again, whoever thought about it is genius, is the layer system, right? Where you can stack up like different layers on each other. They're all independent of one another. And it's insane because if you can do it well, I can start this and I can set up hairstyle 45, expression, I don't know, 33, I guess, right? Beard 23. I can do all of these things without them affecting one another. And that's the beauty of it. They are all stacked in layers. So I have the hairstyle layer, right? This is hair 45. And if you look at the state machine here, you have a 45 or 46 selected. I think it doesn't affect the beard. It doesn't affect your body type. If I then move to body type, I can select different body types and it doesn't affect anything. So that's because all of these elements that I'm selecting and moving in between are on different layers. You can interact with them independently. The rule is what is controlling hair in one layer doesn't control hair in another layer. That's basically the only rule you need to know. So if you can stick with that and you know that, okay, I'm controlling my hairstyles in this layer, and then in other layers, nothing touches. You can't go to my beard and find hairstyle there. It doesn't work that way. That way, you've broken the rule, right? It becomes complex for you and it probably doesn't work. So in beard layer, I have all my beards. There are currently 21 beards. 24. So that's pretty much the idea of it. That's pretty much the idea of Rive. So I think the most complex side of things was the hairstyles because they were like 80 something hairstyles. In retrospect, if I drag this up, you can see just how many hairstyles they are. And all of these has its own layer. If I come here and go to hair, you can see all of these, everything you're seeing here are just animations that I've dragged. This is animation 33. If I double click it, it takes me to animation 33. So you have all these animations that you can move in between from any state. This basically means that I can go from 46 to her 80. I think I have 80 to her 80, and it jumps from there. It doesn't follow any order. That's the point of any state. That's the idea. If I come here, you say that 80 is selected. That's the general idea. So as long as they're stacked, I can go on and do glasses. Glasses on a different layer too. Currently, there's nil. That's 0 glasses. If I come here and then select, go to 1, you have glass 1, and then you update to glass 1. So this is it. So all you have to do is you have to kind of figure out, okay, so how do you want to stack it up? How many layers do you want to do? How difficult is it going to be? And for elements that will affect each other, that are dependent on one another, for instance, your beard type is not dependent on anything, but your beard position is. If I go to beard, say beard, I think it's 1. Yeah, this is beard 1, and this is what it looks like, right? But if I change expressions, say to something like, you can see how it changes because there's a different mouth, there's a different look altogether. See, this gives you, it basically moves the beard. That's the point I'm trying to make, right? So now I've made it in such a way that the beard position is dependent on your mouth shape, as it is in real life anyway. So because of that, you then get to do your beard selection separately in beards. However, you can then stack your beard position. If I come here and I go to beards, you would realize that none of the beards have any position animated. Nothing here. That's because I know that I want to move the beards using the expression side of things. So if I go to expressions, right, you have emotion 0, emotion 64, emotion everything, and then so you can see that the beard is in this position because I've keyframed it to this. But on other ones, as the further down I go, you can see that it moves. So the beard itself doesn't change if you notice. The position does. So I think it's one of those things that you just really have to ask yourself, okay, what is going to move what? You have to decide before you go into like the entire animations. You have to know what is linked to what. What makes this character maker very unique, in my perspective, is the number of possibilities that you can create that are independent from one another, right? So I try to limit the dependencies to like really important dependencies. It will look weird if your mouth was like this and your beard stays, your mustache stayed still. Could I have done that? That would have been easy to do, but like it would look weird. So that's why I had to make the decision to, okay, you know what? How about we move the mustache and, you know, make it move to your emotions and stuff like that. And it wasn't just this beard. I think I did it with this beard. So you have your goatee. But do this.
So
This is
this
a clipped
means
version
every
of it.
time you create a new beard, you have to work out how that new beard relates to every other mouth or expression. So it becomes an exponential
Yep.
issue.
Yeah.
And I'm
Yeah.
guessing that's the same with hair, how hair will affect the glasses as well. Every set of
Yeah.
glasses has
Yeah.
to fit with every hair piece. And the hat on the hair. Every hat has to fit with every hairstyle.
Yeah, that was also especially insane. So I looked at Duolingo's character maker, and what they did was if you had a hairstyle on and then you wore a hat, your hairstyle all but disappears. You could either have a hat on or you could have hairstyles. You couldn't have both, right? And it worked. I mean, we have it's something hairstyles. How much different do you want to make it? But I did not want to go with that approach. Like I said, this is my personal project and I can do anything, right? So I figured, how do I make my life more difficult? And the question, had an answer. So for every hairstyle that you have, whatever your hairstyle is dependent on if you're wearing a headgear and the kind of headgear that you're wearing. For instance, this is an afro, right? If I wear a hat for it, you can see that the hat kind of pushes the afro downwards, right, as you'd expect. And this is the same thing for like literally every hairstyle that's there. So if I go to more female hairstyles, you realize that it looks different with or without. It doesn't cover your face anymore. Let me give it an expression. It doesn't cover your face anymore. But without the headgear, it does, right? And I tried my best to kind of figure out, okay, so if you have a hat on, how would it distort your hair, right? And that's why I went with it. Normally, I would have added a mask to cover you, to clip your hair, depending on if you're wearing a hairstyle. And if I do that, if you look at this shape right here, this is a hair clip. Look at this shape. So if I wear a headgear, right? But yeah, your hair is clipped, right? If I cannot hide, this is going to break the illusion. But if I hide your headgears, if I do this, you can kind of see, and like I said, it breaks the illusion. So forgive me. You can kind of see that although nothing is covering the hair, there's no hair there either way, right? That's because there's a mask that has been animated, right? That's generally the idea. But it doesn't work that way. Just masking doesn't work because then you would have some clips that don't make sense because your hair doesn't start from the head here. So some hairs there's like afro, for instance. Look at it. If you go for the afro, right, your afro without the headgear, right? This is it. So even if you clip it, it kind of just clips on this side, and it still looks weird because then you have your afro starting off from like thin air, right? So if you're wearing a hat, your hair is going to flow down from underneath the hat outwards, right? So that's what we then went with. So if you wear a afro, even without the hat covering it, you have your hair coming out right from under there. And if you change, this is pretty much how it is for like literally every other hairstyle that is long. You can look at this one. So it comes out right from under it. And that's it. And then if you go to like another hairstyle, say a turban, right? If you're wearing a turban, the idea of a turban is it packs all your hair. So you have nothing showing, right? This basically just covers your hair and everything. The same thing with, your hijab and stuff like that. It covers everything. So for that one, I basically just move the clip downwards. But the point I'm trying to make here is depending on how far you're willing to take this, how insane you are, there's a lot of work to be done, right? In just trying to say, okay, in trying to keep it as realistic and as cartoonish as possible. Because, like I said, I could have just done with the initial, if you have a hat on, then there's no hair. That would have been so much easier for me to do, right? But because I'm insane, right? I just figured, why didn't you just make different hairstyles? So what I did is if you go to hairstyles, you have hair one, right, which is the basic hairstyle, but you also have hair one clipped. The clipped version is what you get if you wear a hat, right? You have a three, you have a three clipped. You have a four, you have a four clipped. I did this for the front hair, I did it for the back hair. And don't forget my annoying baby, the extra borders. So even on the borders, you literally have the same thing, clipped and unclipped. So like literally everything has its own layer. I like to name my layer, obviously. So you have high color. I did not even need to add eye color, by the way, but I just had to do. You have face structure. So you have all of these details on different layers. some things affecting other things and stuff like that. For the beard that was moving around, I think the best approach to that I did was I kind of just had one beard. Okay, one. This is called goatee, and this was like the only thing I was moving. So in all the expressions, I'm only moving the goatee here. And then every other rendition of this beard that comes along, I just use constraints tied to that one and do it. So if I want to add a new goatee with another beard today, all I need to do is just put it there and tie it to this one. It's already animated with the expressions and stuff like that. The same thing with the small soul patch, the same thing with the small mustache and stuff like that. So that these are like the approaches I took to making my workflow like faster and my Rive file smaller and more optimized, really. So sometimes it's not enough to just brute force like the entire thing. You have to kind of find, okay, how would this be easier for me? How would this make my workflow faster and stuff like that? And yeah, that's pretty much my Rive. I feel like if you're a Rive person, nothing about this should be surprising to you, but I don't know. That's that. Did I answer your question?
Absolutely. So it's an avatar creator where you control what layers show up, but you use different state machine layers for each type of object on the person's face, and they all have relationships to each other. So specific ones are in specific positions and specific ones are visible depending on which specific objects are visible. This is insane. You are insane. This has exponential difficulty levels the more items that you add. That is
Yeah.
crazy. So, Hafeez, you've shown me your wonderful, insane Rive project. Now I know that it is currently an app available for free right now as an avatar maker creator. How do you control a Rive file in code?
It's actually easier than you would think, right? So all you need to do is just export, and it gives you a file, a .rid file. That's what you bring into code. If I open my Xcode here, so if you look at this, right, this is the file, love.rid. This is the file that you get. This is the file that does everything, really. This is the app as it is, right? If I click on it, you then get the UI that you saw in Rive, and then you have all of the state machine inputs. You have everything expanded into selectable icons or shapes, whatever it is, right? This is body 2. If I select this, it changes the body. If I select this, it changes the body color. If any one of these changes the skin tone, as you can already tell, great stuff. You can even move the position. This was something I set up in Rive to do, and then I brought into a slider here that you could just,
Did you set that up
that's,
in Rive using a blend state?
yeah, that's exactly what I did. Funny.
Nice.
So if I go back to Rive, you can see that there's a move here, and I drag it, you can see that it moves. It's a blend state. So if I do this, it moves. So basically, the idea is with code, you're able to like interact with it a lot more. You're able to create items that would control the Rive inputs. So how do you control a Rive inputs in code? It's the easiest thing ever. So I define the character. We call the character, let it be a Rive model. And then the Rive model is, the name is Laufey, which is the name of the Rive file that you're seeing here, right? And the state machine name is main, which, if you remember, is the state machine that we did here. This is it, main. So if you're trying to connect Rive to code, you have to make sure that the semantics align and then fit contain. This was important for me. I wanted to fit it to, so that no matter how large or small it was, it will fit like whatever screen size you were using. And then this is how you control it. Character that set input skin tone. If you come here, you will find skin tone here, spelled the same way as it is here, because that is what the code will look for. The code will go ahead and say, okay, so we have a Rive file that is called Laufey, and a state machine that is called main, and then we're looking for an input that is called skin tone. So I then said value skin tone. This value is a number value. It's an integer or a double. That's numbers, right?
Okay, so you have your value skin
Mhm.
tone. How is the variable value being updated in the app?
Right. If I go to assets, you would see skin tone color, skin tone. You can see skin tone 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, all the skin tones. So what we are now saying with this code, we're saying for each of the existing skin tones that we have, which is 13, whenever you tap them, you change your character state dot skin tone to the tapped number. So that's basically all it is. See if I keep your eyes here. If I press
Right, I
this,
get it now.
yeah, yeah, it
So
basically
in one
just
file, you're taking in the tap input on the specific
yeah,
icon, and that changes the variable value. And then in another file, that
yeah,
value is being input into the Rive file.
basically. So I think that's pretty much the gist of it, really.
We made it through all of the questions. All 3.
Woo.
Well,
Yeah.
Hafeez, Boredpxnda, thank you very much for showing me your files.
You're welcome. Thank you very much for giving me the platform. This was fun. This was nice.
Once again, if you want to try out Hafeez's avatar creator, just go onto the App Store and type in Jazz, Jas, character creator.